You have absolutely no idea how hard I tried to ignore this guy. He's forced his way into every MMA fan's life and put his foot in the door of every fan's social media, every fan's Twitter, and every bit of breaking news that you'll see these days is involving this guy. You actually have to give him credit for being able to keep himself relevant every single week when it comes to the media. The problem with the MMA media, maybe I shouldn't call it a problem, they're smart, they're trying to get clicks. They will cover anything this guy says. There was a period during Colby Covington's sort of persona change where he would just say ridiculous things. I'm gonna beat up LeBron James or whatever he was gonna say. And the MMA media would make a quote on it or put it on your Twitter feed and things like that. And it doesn't matter. I can tell you I'm gonna rob a bank tomorrow, but it doesn't mean you should write it or make it matter of factly. It doesn't mean it's even relevant. The first time I heard about this guy, I'd coming home from work and my Twitter feed has so many muted words to avoid people like this. And when I'd come home from work, because I'm so deep into the fight game in terms of watching all the interviews and media and stuff like that, my brother's really interested in fights as well. And I'd come home from work and he was saying, oh, tonight it's Logan Paul versus KSI. And I was like, who versus who? I don't know who the hell those people are, man. Like, he's like, yeah, they're YouTubers. I'm like, cool, don't care. Like, I only care about the high level fights. I care about fights where I want to watch the best in the world versus the best in the world, because you know what you're going to get in terms of product. So that's the first time I heard of one of these Paul brothers. It wasn't until, because I'm quite deep into the boxing game as well, in terms of following the fights, watching the promoters, interviews and things like that, Bob Arum, Eddie Hearn, all the PBC fights, whatever it may be. There was a fight with Demetrius Andrade in Miami, which was being promoted by Eddie Hearn. But on the co-main event was Jake Paul versus this other YouTuber. I think he opens up football cards on his YouTube channel and he's got like millions of subscribers. I don't know what the hell. I don't know. I'm not interested in these YouTube like guys who just play FIFA and stuff like that. I don't know what the hell it is. But I wasn't watching his interviews and things like that. But on my feed, it was coming up this sit down dinner where he's just acting like a tool. He had like a WBC belt with him. I don't know what the hell he's doing. Yeah,
you're not fighting against pros?
No,
full on?
No,
because I go in when I fight pros, we go full go. That's the big thing that you want to run with here is, oh, you have yes men.
Yes.
You can't. Well, guess what? My yes men had me fucking here on time, and I'm a fucking professional. You're just like an idiot, bro. I think this whole thing is like a show for you, where you're like, I get this opportunity to.
Sean Briggs lot.
You are stupid. No. Suck it all up, buddy. Suck it all up. This is your last 2 days, and then no one's gonna give a fuck about you.
But it's working. Okay, it's working. He's starting to gain traction. He's clout chasing like very well. He's marketing himself decent. I mean, he's on the co-main of bloody Andrade fight, so fair play to him.
181.8 pounds for the problem child.
So even though I checked the results for that Demetrius Andrade card, you couldn't help but see this stupid knockout that happened because the guy was just crouching around. There was a lot of memes about how he was just pressing the B button. His B button was stuck. It got quite funny actually. It got quite funny, and they absolutely buried this YouTuber, this guy Gibb, and Jake Paul actually had a good knockout. And then because I was forced to see this highlight on Twitter or YouTube or Instagram, whatever, I actually thought he had some moderately decent fundamentals. Now, what this doesn't mean is that I'm gonna start going out of my way to watch him, but as a combat sports fan, you have to admire when someone's doing something right. In these clips, it looks as though his footwork is pretty good, his composure is good, his timing is pretty good, and his counter ability is actually not that bad. Of course, we're looking at him versus a complete novice, and he's a novice himself, but I just thought that actually he did show some glints of a decent ability to strike. Doesn't mean I agree with his antics or his pre-fight build-up. I don't have a problem with any fighter's shticks that they do or characters or personas. It's just that this one isn't necessarily my cup of tea, so I'm not going to be going out of my way to find his interviews. If you're a fan of boxing, that Roy Jones, Mike Tyson, those are just two iconic names. You cannot miss this. And who's the co-main event? It's Jake Paul versus Nate Robinson. Obviously, I'm a basketball fan as well. I thought, wow, this is just so stupid. But who cares? I'm watching for Tyson, right? I'm sitting there. I'm watching for Tyson. But but you cannot help but see this ridiculous performance that Nate Robinson puts on. He should never have been in there. He just looked absolutely amateur. He looked like he'd never stepped a foot in that gym. And Jake Paul's fundamentals again looked even better to me, actually. His composure was really good. Considering the platform he was on it was a huge card in terms of sales. You know, they had all that Frenchman from the circus BS, right, which is laughable, but he did really great. Honestly, Jake Paul actually did fantastic. Then I started to actually pay attention to this guy. Now, here's the interesting thing about this is the quality of the fight is not good. It's an absolute shit show. Both of these fights were, but there's nothing wrong with the actual fight quality itself. These are the fights and the type of quality that we should expect for someone at his level and for his opponent's level. The problem that the fans are having, or that initially you sort of feel skeptical about, is why is this so high up on the card? Like, why is this the co-main event to a Mike Tyson fight? Like, we know what we're getting with the Tyson fight. We're getting two guys out of their prime, but that were basically pound for pound great. These are two amateurs, white collar boxing, celebrity boxing. It's a low quality, but it's so high up on the card. It's actually above premier boxers as well. So it's almost, so the boxing community almost take it as an insult, but there's no way to stop it because the following is so large. The fan base for Jake Paul is so large that the numbers are speaking way louder. The numbers beat the ethics. Now, what was great about this fight was after this fight, Jake actually stepped into a new realm where he was just calling out everyone, and he was, you know, I'm the best boxer in the world. And if you actually get sensitive about it, you can get pissed off with what he's saying, but you need to take what he says with a pinch of salt. It's actually quite funny once you understand that he's just trying to piss you off. This is his role. If he's succeeding in pissing you off, then it's working. But if you just understand that he is literally just, I'm fighting Nate Robinson, who's, you know, 7 inches shorter than me. I want to call out Conor McGregor. I want to fight Nate Diaz. He's a natural 210-pound guy, and he's calling out these guys who are fought at 145, 155. It's clever to mention the biggest stars of people that he's massively outsizing, even if his skill level's not there, but there are weight classes for a reason. He then attaches his name to people like Dylan Dennis, an ongoing saga. He'll just continue to attach his name to people. Then his team, someone in his team definitely went to college. They had a brilliant idea of picking out Ben Askren. Ben Askren was a guy who was coming off a retirement, hip surgery, 3 pretty bad losses in the UFC. Well, if you want to count the Robbie Lawler as a loss or a win, up to you. But 3 fights where he took significant damage. He didn't look very impressive in any of them, and striking has never been his forte. The criticism with Jake Paul at this point is that he's not fighting real fighters. However, if you think about the fact that he's actually just fighting and getting reps out there, and you compare it to regular boxers, it's not actually that bad what he's doing. He's got a lot of eyes on him as well, so even fighting that pressure is impressive. The important thing about choosing Ben Askren was that naturally Ben Askren can't help but to use his mouth to promote fights. So Jake Paul had a great dance partner here, and Triller, which is sort of like this new company that's throwing money at absolutely everything, engaging in these circus acts, they're getting right behind this and embracing it fully. A lot of people had mixed thoughts about what would happen in this fight.
Whatever. Yeah. So you're saying he can fight. There you go. Zab Judah said he can fight. So the kid that he's going to fight is a wrestler, decorated wrestler. Guys, he's been a world champion in other organizations. I'm interested too. So, he talks a lot of shit. Tell you what, I hope you can bet on this thing, because I'll bet $1 million.
Oh, here we go.
That he loses this fucking fight.
Because Ben has been an Olympic level athlete before, in terms of his mentality, his ability to not give up when times are tough, Jake Paul hasn't experienced those sort of things. So there were a few questions that we may have had in this fight stylistically where the problems could arise for Paul, and that actually made people watch. We don't necessarily know if the numbers that Triller said they did or what happened. It definitely garnered interest. I remember I had to multi-screen this because I believe there was UFC on at the same time. Jake Paul defeats Ben Askren by absolutely devastating knockout.
Come on, Jake, bring your ass on up here. Come on, Jake. How the fight finished off. Come on home, Jake. We finna break bread and fake dead. 2 tickets on the house. Oh boy.
A jab and a straight right hand.
And what's clever about this is that he can now say that he's beaten a legit fighter. Even if he beat an out of prime, injured Ben Askren who just came there to collect the purse, he can still say it. He's still using that. It is an absolutely beautiful cherry pick because it gives him so much leverage to talk more shit. Even if you don't agree with what he's saying, he's still gonna use it against you as the fan. Then he started to really really piss off the MMA community. He's going at Daniel Cormier, he's going at Dylan Dennis again, Conor McGregor's even addressing him, Dana White, and then he starts to make a shift into this sort of, I'm the angel of MMA, I'm gonna fight for fighters' pay, even though I'm gonna go against the boss for you guys because you guys are going to get blackballed by the UFC. I'm not scared of Dana White, I'm gonna fight Dana for you.
It's very important. You know, Goldman Sachs just came out with a study that UFC fighters get 10% of their earnings that the whole UFC gets. You know, other leagues like the NBA, the NFL, they get 50%. Fighters are putting their life on the line. Chris Weidman snapping his shin in half. Fighters deserve more, and look, a lot of people are scared of Dana White. I don't give a shit. His fighters are starting GoFundMe pages.
Looking for UFC fighters.
I'm not a spokesman. Like, I'm not trying to be, but who else is? Like, when has anyone ever talked about fighter pay and made it this big of a point?
Now you have to think about this. He's trying to get fights with MMA fighters and offering them the biggest purse that they will get in terms of upfront money. He's advocating for fighter pay. Speaking about fighter pay and actually doing something about it are two different things, but every time I think that someone who's got notoriety or a following behind them is addressing fighter pay, it's always a good thing. It's always a good thing to get the voice out there. He's saying some home truths about Dana, but he's also still playing the villain. So you don't necessarily know how to feel about him. At this point, I remember my brother had said to me, he goes, I'd always tried to convince him to get into boxing, and he said, bro, I watched that Jake Paul versus Ben Askren fight. It was just such a waste of my time. I can't watch boxing. I can't get into it. You're going into it thinking that it is real boxing. It's an absolute circus, man. You need to understand that when you're watching these guys fight, or these YouTubers or anything like that, you're going into it as a circus. But if you're going to watch Charlos fight, Errol Spence, Terence Crawford, Manny Pacquiao, Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, anyone, Usyk, though, that's real boxing. So you need to understand that, make the separation in your mind in that this is a circus and that this needs to be taken with a pinch of salt. You need to understand that you should be expecting a potential shit show to happen. Jake Paul's now signed to fight Tyron Woodley. In the aftermath of the Ben Askren fight, we find out that in the locker room when Woodley goes to inspect Jake Paul's gloves, his team end up creating an altercation, a sort of back and forth trash talk with Woodley. His team is full of people that we don't know in the combat sports world, but seem to be piping up a lot just because they're cheerleaders for Team Paul. This is the genesis of the beef. Woodley also mentions that Jake Paul's team had prank called him in the past, and that's the actual genesis of the beef. But in terms of what came to public light, it appears as though this was it.
You don't know about no gloves, man. You just grab what like you know about these, man. You don't know about these guys. You know I can fight, though.
Go for the clout.
I ain't never doing it for the clout.
Chasing.
I do this.
Chasing.
I do this.
Chasing.
I do this, champ. Come on, man. You can't with me any day of the week.
What's your name again?
J. Leon Love.
J. Leon Love.
Yeah.
All right, my man.
If we talking about that.
Ain't no money behind you, bro.
Ain't no money behind you. Your just went down, didn't it?
Ain't no money behind you.
Your stock.
Okay, so let's make a bet. How much you putting up? We'll match it. We'll match whatever number you want. Gentlemen's bet.
Yeah, I need to focus on the fight.
We are.
I don't play. Number one, I don't play games. That's what
Sounds like you're playing right now.
In one of my previous videos where I talked about Jorge Masvidal now becoming a clout chaser, the reason why it was noticeable is because he had a complete polar opposite energy previously in his career. Jake Paul in this instance is unapologetically clout chasing at every opportunity he can get. Whenever there's a moment for him to be in the spotlight, he will seize it. He will insert himself into every single event where there's any media present, or he'll create it through his own social media because of his following.
Slowly, easy. You got two fake fighters. Fake fighter. I'm a real fighter. I'm my own boss.
One night. Got your hat.
When you think about these things, I know it's kind of gross, the fact that he has to keep attaching his name to every single little thing, but it's also genius in terms of marketing. His PR ability, his trolling ability, his social media presence, it's always there. He's always going to be relevant. He's going to find a way to make himself relevant. We actually applauded Floyd and Conor for doing this all the time. During Conor's prime, I mean, not when Conor was tweeting every week after the fights, but I mean that Jake is actually teaching the fighters a certain thing or two. Not to necessarily clout chase, but to always seize your moment. Whenever you have a moment to maybe make some noise, try and do that. Even if Jake Paul is completely unbearable, train is not stopping. Every single time we thought it should hurry up and stop, it's not. It's getting faster and faster and faster. Now the build up to this Tyron Woodley fight has just been fantastic. ShowTime have really put all their eggs in one basket. They've managed to cross over the MMA fans. It doesn't necessarily appear that the boxing media is behind Jake Paul, but the MMA media will always cover him, so that is lifting the profile of this fight. Even if Jake Paul has a great following with people who respect him and follow him and hang on to every word that he says, and even if you just respect what he's doing, even if you don't like his shtick, his characteristics, but you respect that he is a PR genius, he's a marketing genius, especially at such a young age, he did the wrong thing. He did the wrong thing. He crossed the line this week and he did something that you should never do, and that's fuck Mama Woodley. Now, this isn't just Tyron Woodley's mum. This is the mother to all of us. This woman is a national treasure and she does not deserve to be involved in anyone saying anything negative to her.
It's okay. It's all good, baby. It's all good. It's all good, honey. That's your part. It's gonna come for you, and you take it to them. Watch it. They better watch out.
Team Paul, his cheerleaders and stuff like that started to downplay the incident, even if it was small and even if it got blown up proportion and the narrative was painted how it was.
You a whole hour and a half. That's what. Now what? Now fucking what? I got you. Don't say shit.
Let's go. Get it out.
Never ever fuck with Mama Woodley. Tyron Woodley did an interview after the incident and it just got me so fired up. Take a look at this.
What you're not willing to do is fucking talk to my mother any type of way. I don't give a fuck if you're a whole op. I don't care if you killed my friend. I'm never gonna speak on nobody's mouth. I'm never gonna have no conversation with you. Disrespect off the top. So then I said, is you fucking talking to my mom, dog? No. Then I heard Jake say something. Yeah, he's talking to your mom or some bullshit like that. He don't know no better. He don't understand this life, man, the way you ain't never seen. Fuck the UFC shit, fuck the knockout shit. I will fucking start hurting people. You'll see orange drop and start hitting the floor.
How many times where family members get into it with other teams?
We ain't never seen this a million times, G. I'll hurt people in here.
No, you took it personally at a different level, but I've seen it a lot in boxing.
You'll see people disappear.
This is the only way that this fight can play out now. Jake Paul was to win. We get to see how far this circus train gets to go. If Tyron Woodley wins, we get an immediate rematch, as Jake Paul's team has put it in the contract. But if Tyron Woodley wins by knockout, stick with me here, the rematch is sellable, because you can say, oh, it was a lucky punch, or maybe Woodley gets dropped and this and that, and then comes back and gets him, or it's a scrappy victory. But if Woodley outclasses Paul for all 8 rounds, or perhaps outclasses him for 6 rounds and then finishes him, it's very, very hard to sell that rematch. So either way is sort of a win-win scenario, and I mean a win for Paul, because whether you're a fan of this entire circusy freak show sort of, I don't know what you want to call it, it is fascinating to see. Something like this has never invaded the MMA space before, or the boxing space, and it's fascinating theater. I guess this train doesn't come to an end just yet. Jake Paul defeats Tyron Woodley via split decision. Woodley actually probably had won best 2 rounds in this fight, but he hurt Jake Paul very badly, had him stumbling all over the place, and it just appeared that we saw the same old Woodley, someone who was a bit inactive, maybe didn't step on the gas when he needed to. Jake Paul wins, and if you thought he was unbearable before, wait till you see him now. I think the perfect next fight for him is the winner of the Oscar De La Hoya versus Vitor Belfort. What do you guys think? Let me know.